Hello, this is Danny, welcoming you to the 2091st edition of the Enfield Talking Newspaper, Dateline the 30th of March 2017. The readers this week are Ali, Maureen, Peter and Danny, with Phillip on the controls. The editor was the entire team, and the production and distribution team is Phillip, Lindsay and Jean. Our title music is Country Rock Polka, composed by Pat Prilly, Fernand Bouillon, Harry Breuer and performed by Jean-Jacques Perret and is used with his kind permission. The local news stories that we will be reading come from our local newspapers, the Enfield Gazette and Advertiser and the Enfield Independent, and are their copyright. Any events information has been collated by us from other sources. The local news headlines this week include Blooming Cheek and Boy Racers in Car Park. Before the news, the sunrise and sunset times for today, the 30th of March 2017, are 6:41 a.m. and 7:27 p.m. Do get in touch with us to share your own news and special announcements. We love to hear from you. If you have any comments about the Enfield Talking newspaper, please phone Diane de Jersey on 020 8805 6578. She is your listener's representative and will be pleased to help you. Now, Ali will read the first item of local news.
Bloomin' cheek. Traders object to steel flower boxes placed in green lanes. Everything is not rosy in Palmer's Green after 6 steel planters were installed to brighten up a busy road. Enfield Council spent £8,200 on big steel boxes which run along a stretch of green lanes as part of a project the local authority said would make the area more attractive for everyone. But shopkeepers, estate agents and cafe owners whose businesses look onto the planters dotted along the pavement are far from happy. Many say they are ugly and an eyesore, and rather than housing beautiful blooms, they are already being used by smokers as ashtrays. Estate agent Abbas Kaya tried to challenge Daniel Anderson, the Cabinet Member for Environment, when the councillor went along to Green Lanes last Thursday to pose for a photo with the planters. Mr. Kaya said, "I asked him, why were we not consulted? If we had been, I would have said the money should be spent on levelling the faulty paving slabs instead." But he didn't want to listen. They are ugly, and already they are used by the people coming out of the pub to put their empty glasses in and their cigarette butts. The council said the steel planters, cast in a pearl copper colour, would create a permanent floral feature and screen pedestrians' view of vehicles travelling along the busy road. Mr. Anderson said, "Enfield is rightly proud of its beautiful greenery, and these planters, which will contain such plants as thyme, sage and oregano, will enhance the look and feel of the area, making it an even more vibrant and attractive place to live, work and visit." Andri and Nicholas Panay have run Polar Florist in Green Lanes for 20 years. Andri said, "The planters are far too big. They will get in the way of buggies and blind people. They should be long and narrow and not so big. Flowers would have been nice, but not these, and they have put trees in them. Who is going to prune them? They're completely wrong for that spot. Nobody consulted, nobody asked us what we thought. It's typical of the council." However, a council spokesman insisted that people were consulted. He said, "These bright and attractive planters were installed at the direct request of local residents who had asked for trees to be planted in this area to make it greener and more attractive. Because trees could not be physically planted in these locations, residents were instead consulted on whether to install planters in the area. The majority of people asked were in favour of their installation. The planters are designed to screen pedestrians' view of vehicles travelling along green lanes while improving the appearance of the area itself.
Boy racers in car park, fast, furious and reckless. Fast and furious boy racers have turned a retail car park into their private playground, while residents for miles around complain about unbearable noise. In the small hours of the night, teams of souped-up cars arrive at Ravenside Retail Park in Edmonton to begin hours of reckless driving. The retail park lies just inside the North Circular and closely borders Chinkford. but residents as far away as Hyams Park are being kept up at night. On Sunday, March 19th, at about 4 a.m, 3 cars were filmed screeching around the car park as they drifted around doing dangerous donuts. The next day, shoppers had to step around tyre debris which littered the car park, while a burnt-out Ford hatchback was simply dumped outside the entrance to Next Home. Despite a trespassing problem which has persisted for over a year, the Met has made no arrests but are investigating. Linda Hall, who lives nearly 3 miles away in Winchester Road in Hyams Park, said she is being kept up at night with unbearable noise. She said, "Surrounding residents all need to sleep at night. We get to hear them with their noisy exhausts on their way to the venue. Some of them are racing up and down the North Circular, as well as on residential streets, on quad bikes as well. It affects a lot of people on a very irregular basis, all over Chinkford and Hyams Park, and no doubt in Edmonton and Enfield, as other car parks are used as well." In a video uploaded by a spectator in January this year, modified cars were filmed doing donuts around lampposts outside Arcos and Carpetright. The dangerous stunts were performed inside of a circle of other cars, beaming their headlights at the drivers, while spectators filmed the exploits on their mobile phones. In one video, a man is seen lying across the top of a BMW estate, hanging on while it and another BMW and Nissan Skyline drift around the car park. The retail park is owned by M&G Real Estate, who apologised unreservedly for the disruption caused to nearby residents. A spokesperson for the property moguls said they had spent thousands installing security on site. They added, "But despite the lengthy and costly measures already taken, we are still experiencing problems and are reliant on the local police for further guidance and action." A Met spokesman added, "Police continue to work with partners to develop plans to address the problem."
Car park plan a joke, says play centre boss. A play centre owner has described Enfield Council's decision to close the public car park over the half-term holidays a joke. The authority plans to shut Lodge Drive car park outside Kids Biz for up to 7 days from Monday, April 3rd, the busiest week of the year, to expand and resurface the site. The company has 3 bookings due on the first day of the school holidays, and around 50 children are expected to attend each party, but now they will have to park their cars further away and walk. Manager Steve Day was only officially told about this on March the 23rd. He said, "I've been treated with disdain, treated like I was completely irrelevant, as if the whole thing is just a joke to them. This may be an inconvenience to them, but it is more than an inconvenience to us. If we had been given more warning, we could have made sure everyone was informed. I understand the work needs to be done, but they didn't consult us or give us the chance to work together. They seem to be determined to steamroll it through without asking anyone." The car park is the second sudden change to happen in the vicinity this year, after temporary offices were put up in January to deal with the Cycle Enfield scheme. He has sent emails to many council officers to share his concern about the works, but only one has responded to him. Mr. Day said, "Half of the problem is the complete lack of consultation that has happened. I am a very amenable man usually, but this has passed all reasonableness. The offices bowled up in January, and I had no idea that they would be there until they were put up, and even then we weren't told what they were there for. They could have been put anywhere else in the car park, but they've operated without a modicum of thought for anybody but themselves." He added, "As a children's play centre, health and safety is paramount to us, and if a child gets run over, this will be someone's fault. It would be convenient for them if I would just shut up, as it seems like they're just going to do it anyway." Enfield Council said, "To ensure the job is carried out safely, it is unfeasible for parts of the car park to be left open for use while the resurfacing is carried out. The car park is scheduled to reopen within 7 days of the commencement day. On completion, it will be in a much improved condition to benefit all, including 20 45 minutes free parking bays."
Fly tipping hell. Dumped rubbish attracting rats and foxes. A disabled man says rubbish dumped outside his house is attracting foxes and rats. Peter Laws of Clover Court, Scotland Green Road, says he constantly tells housing association Paradigm Housing about the fly tipping constantly left outside. The 43-year-old says the housing association put up wooden fences with key-coded gates, but within hours they had been broken by people kicking and ramming them. In December, metal fences and gates were reinstalled, but the gates only lock one way and people continue to dump rubbish outside his home. Animals, including foxes and rats, have been attracted to the area outside the property because of the build-up of litter. Mr. Laws said, "I did tell my housing association, but it seems like they just brush it aside. If they actually thought about resolving the situation, instead of just putting a plaster over it, things may get better." In 2002, he was robbed in his own home when he opened the door believing it to be his carer, but he was pushed over as a young man knocked him over and began searching his home. Mr. Laws got up and grabbed him, but due to his poor grip, the attacker left the property with £20 and was never found. After the incident, Mr. Laws bought a CCTV system to record the entrance to his home and a maglock system for the front door. He added, "It is the walkway outside my door that's my problem. Any willy-nilly walks through by my door, seeing that a vulnerable person lives there, so they just try their luck. Just seeing the rubbish there 24/7 is horrible, and people urinate in the area too. It's horrible. It feels like I'm the only one who cares." Paradigm Housing said, "The money that we spend on its removal could be otherwise used for providing more affordable homes for those who need them most. This is the first time that this particular incident has been reported to us. We installed gates last year at a significant cost to try and prevent continued fly tipping in this area, but these do not prevent people who are determined to dump rubbish illegally. If our customers witness fly tipping taking place, they should report it to the police or the local authority and ourselves immediately."
Cocaine smuggler gets 18-year term. A drugs kingpin who ran a £31 million cocaine smuggling racket while in hiding at a luxury Spanish villa has been jailed for 18 years. Paul Monk, 56, spent years shipping huge quantities of cocaine and cannabis from Europe into Britain. When he was snared in 2015 at the villa in Javier near Benidorm, Monk was instructing workmen as they were laying marble tiles around his swimming pool. Monk was caught supplying cocaine in Cockfosters a year before the full extent of the overseas operation unfolded. He oversaw the importation of 997 kilograms of cocaine into the UK, having evaded justice for years after fleeing overseas, the Metropolitan Police said. He was snared by authorities in Spain when they searched a house near Alicante last April, finding piles of cash hidden in pot plants and paperwork outlining his illicit operations. A fake passport and an imitation gun was also said to have been found during the search. Police said Monk, of no fixed abode, was sentenced at the Old Bailey on Wednesday last week after he pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply a quantity of Class A drugs between January the 1st, 2014 and April the 15th, 2015. He was also given a 4-year prison sentence to be served concurrently for supplying 1 kilogram of cocaine in Cockfosters in May 2013. He had pleaded guilty to this charge at Kingston Crown Court in 2015. Monk had been at large since he slipped abroad in December 2013, despite being required to stay in the UK as a condition of his release on licence after serving half of a 9-year jail sentence for importing cannabis in 2007. A European arrest warrant was issued for him in May 2014. After being captured by Spanish police, he was brought back to the UK on May the 7th, 2015, and charged with supplying a kilogram of cocaine. He was charged over his role in the supply operation in September last year. Met detectives established that Monk had imported 997 kilograms of cocaine with a value of £31 million. Detective Sergeant David Williams said Monk is a career criminal who showed a disregard for the laws of UK after he fled to Spain in 2013 to escape justice. He obtained false identity documents in order to evade authorities, while he continued to run an international drug supply network from his home in Spain. Monk has been sentenced to a lengthy period in custody, and I would like to thank the Guardia Civil for their cooperation in the investigation that secured this conviction. We will continue to work together to ensure all the proceeds of Monk's drug trafficking empire are confiscated.
Friends search for class of 1937. Although nearly 80 years has passed since this school photo was taken, two elderly women are determined to find the missing links from their childhood. Using their maiden names to help them, Eileen Walker and Amelia Flight, both 89, are hoping to find some very old classmates from Larkswood School in New Road, Chingford. With only a class photo from 1937 to help them, the pair, who have both been married for an incredible 69 years, have managed to put 20 names to faces so far. The black and white photo showing the girls aged 10 was rediscovered recently by Eileen, who was inspired to search for others after a chance meeting at a hospital. Walking into the hospital lift, almost 8 decades of life drifted away as Eileen immediately recognised one of her classmates. Eileen said, "We both looked at each other and I said to her, 'Sheila Taylor?' And she said, 'Yes, but I can't remember your name, but you were at school with me.' Well, I said, 'It was only 82 years ago,' and the other people in the lift were amazed, saying that they can't remember what they did last week. After seeing Sheila, I started to wonder where all the others are and wonder how many are still alive." The bond between Eileen and Amelia was secured during the Blitz, when many bombs dropped over Chingford. Amelia added, "A time bomb fell near our house in South Chingford during the war, and Eileen's mother kindly let us stay in their house when Eileen was evacuated. Sadly, a bomb killed one of the girls in the class photo just 3 years after it was taken. Eileen Strevens was just 13 when a bomb killed her in Chingford Avenue. Eileen Walker said, "It's awful to think about it because we know she didn't have much of a life. It's so sad you can see her name on the Second World War Memorial in Chingford Mount Road." While Eileen and Amelia have both kept in touch over the years, Amelia said she has not seen anybody else from the photo.
Shop blunder leaves mum with no hob. A disabled woman who is to be honoured for her charity work was left without a cooker for nearly 1 month. VJ Ratton of Powys Lane, Enfield, bought a cooker from Curry's Staples Corner branch on March the 3rd, but when it was delivered on March the 7th, it made a rumbling noise. The man who installed it said the branch would replace it, but said it needed to be signed off. But the 76-year-old and her son, Cush, struggled to get in touch with Curry's and were later advised to speak to Hotpoint. It agreed to replace the hob by March the 15th, but the family are still waiting. She said, "It was all too much for me. I've been treated badly. It's been such a headache trying to sort this out. I've been through a lot, getting into the car, taking the wheelchair, getting out of the car, sitting in the wheelchair for a long time. My blood pressure is high, my kidneys are damaged and my knee. I just want the problem to be sorted." The mother of 3 came out of hospital in December after suffering with heart problems and lives on a vegetarian diet, which she needs the use of a cooker to maintain. Prison guard Cush said, "We went in to see what could be done, and I asked the manager for his surname as I was making a complaint and keeping track of who I had dealt with. He refused to tell me, as he said he did not know me. I showed him the receipt and told him I was a customer and my work ID, but he said he did not want to tell me because he was scared. There were a few of his colleagues near him, so I think he was showing off. But my mum is sitting there the whole time in a wheelchair needing help." She paid £419.99 for the cooker, £85 installation fee and £15 for her old still functioning cooker to be taken away. She was only offered compensation when her daughter complained on social media, as well as 10% off a new hob. VJ found out in the New Year's honours list that she is to be awarded the British Empire Medal 2 days after her 77th birthday. Currys said, "We've spoken with the customer, the issue has been resolved, and the customer is happy with the resolution."
We hope the truth is getting nearer. A mum who has spent decades campaigning for a full inquiry into the effects of a hormonal pregnancy testing drug has appeared in a documentary on Sky TV. Dubbed the forgotten thalidomide, Primados was a drug given to women in the 1960s and 1970s to establish pregnancy, and many believe it caused damage and deformity in thousands of babies worldwide. Miscarriages, cerebral palsy, brain damage, and children born without limbs were some of the alleged side effects. Chris Gooch, 68, of Carnarvon Avenue, Enfield, was given the pills in 1970. Her daughter Emma, now 45, was born some months later with birth defects affecting the fingers on both hands and her feet and toes. Ms. Gooch has spent years lobbying, along with hundreds of others, to prove that Primados was responsible. Finally, following a 6-year-long campaign, Sky News investigation, shocking evidence has emerged claiming that the controversial drug is linked to birth defects. Primados, the secret drug scandal, aired on Sky Atlantic last Tuesday and again on Sky News on Friday. Ms. Gooch said, "I'm hopeful we're getting nearer and nearer to the truth. I have no doubt that Primados is responsible. Emma's fingers were affected and her toes, and now she suffers chronic backache. She is in constant pain. We fought so long for this. We have always said we want the truth and we're not going away." Primados was a hormone-based medication given to women to detect pregnancy between 1958 and 1961. It consisted of 2 pills that contained high levels of synthetic progesterone, which supposedly induced a period to show the woman was not pregnant. Women were advised to take the first pill and, if they didn't menstruate, to take the second one the next day. The components were later found to be 13 times stronger than the morning after pill. In 1978, Primados was discontinued after doctors noticed an increase in the number of deformed babies born to mothers who had been on the drug. Primados, which was manufactured by the drug company Sharing, now Bayer, who continued to deny it caused deformities in children.
Jail sentences for people smugglers. A man and a woman found trying to smuggle Albanians in their car boot to Britain via the Channel Tunnel have been jailed. Raymond Angelo Manuel and T. Nyok Beach Ngoyen asked for a vehicle with a big boot when they hired an Audi for a trip to Calais. But they were caught red-handed when they returned with 2 people hiding in the boot. On March the 26th, 2015, police in Coquelles, France, stopped to question Manuel, 29, of Forest Road, Edmonton, and Ngoyen, 28, of Great Cambridge Road, Enfield. When questioned, they said they had travelled as a belated Mother's Day treat for Ngoyen. However, when officers searched the car, they found 2 men concealed in the boot. Manuel and Ngoyen were arrested and subsequently charged with assisting unlawful immigration into the UK. Inquiries with the car rental company revealed that Manuel had specifically asked for a car with a big boot. After a trial, Ngoyen was found guilty of the attempted facilitation by a jury at Canterbury Crown Court on March the 16th. Manuel had pleaded guilty to the offence at an earlier hearing. The duo were sentenced on Friday, when Manuel was jailed for 2 years and 114 days, and Ngoyen, 28, was jailed for 2 years. The Albanians found in the boot were handed over to the French police. Assistant Director David Fairclough from the Immigration Enforcement Team said, "Despite their claims, this was not a Mother's Day treat. It was a criminal enterprise. Manuel and Ngoyen went to Calais with one primary objective, and that was to fill their hire car's boot not with shopping, but with people. The sentences handed out should serve as a warning to anyone tempted to get involved with this kind of criminality. We will catch you and put you before the courts. We will continue to work closely with Border Force colleagues to rigorously investigate allegations of immigration-related criminality.
Greedy thieves rip out £450 worth of park plants. Thieves struck twice in one day to rip £450 worth of plants out of the flower bed in a park. Police want to find witnesses to the theft in Tatum Park, Hedge Lane, on Saturday, March the 18th. The theft was discovered by volunteers of the Friends of Tatum Park group on Saturday, March the 18th. An entire bed with camellias and lavender, which was planted the week previously, was taken. Enfield Council said the thieves were so confident and greedy they returned later on Saturday to pick up what they had left, stripping an entire bed of plants bare. Friends of Tatum Park chairman Mark Ellul said the plants would be replaced. The Edmonton Park had been spruced up with the help of donations from the community and the help of Tesco's Bags of Help grant scheme.
Tributes are paid to Westminster victims. MP David Burrows has said he is deeply saddened by the killing of PC Keith Palmer and the lives lost and injured in Westminster Bridge by the callous and cowardice terrorists. Speaking to the Advertiser, Mr Burrows told of the moment Khalid Massoud forced his way into the Parliament's compound and stabbed PC Palmer before being shot. Scores of MPs, including Mr Burrows, were gathered in the Palace of Westminster's cobbled forecourt just moments before a vote on pensions was due to take place. The MP for Enfield Southgate said, "I heard shots fired and out of the corner of my eye saw police running. They shouted, 'Get down,' and I dived for cover. I was then led away by police into Parliament to a safe place. Only the following day did I appreciate the fear and panic that spread across Parliament. Staff in my office on the third floor of Portcullis House had barricaded themselves in and hidden, fearing terrorists were on the loose. As we move forward and examine security issues, we need to take appropriate action to limit the risk of future attacks. However, we also need to avoid Parliament becoming an armed fortress and should retain its accessibility to the public. I remain deeply saddened by the loss of life. PC Palmer was bravely doing his duty and protecting Parliament. Our prayers go out to all the victims and their families." Last Thursday, the Union Jack outside Enfield Police Station in Baker Street was flying at half-mast. Massoud killed 4 people and injured scores more in an 82-second rampage. 2 Enfield councillors, Yasmin Brett, Cabinet Member for Community Arts and Culture, and Crystal Fonionga, Cabinet Member of Community Safety and Public Health, felt so moved by the horror they penned a joint letter to the people of Enfield, making clear that Londoners are standing firm together against threats to society. "We live in the greatest city on earth and we will not be cowed," they wrote. "We will instead redouble our efforts to root out extremism and continue to celebrate and protect the way of life we cherish so dearly. There is no doubt in our mind that if it had not been for the bravery of PC Palmer, who sadly died in the line of duty, and many other police officers, medical personnel and passers-by who stopped to help, that the death toll would have been far worse." Doug Taylor, the leader of the council, said, "Our thoughts and prayers are with everyone affected by the terrorist attack in Westminster. Hatred has no place in a civilised society and we stand in solidarity." Inquests into the deaths of the 4 victims were due to be opened on the 29th of March.
Church bid to rebuild Lychgate. Members of the parish council of St John's Church in Clay Hill, North Enfield, are appealing for help in preserving one of the area's prettiest wedding locations. The Lychgate, a porch at the entrance to the churchyard and traditionally where coffins are rested while waiting for a funeral to take place, is suffering from serious subsidence and needs rebuilding. The existing church building is thought to date from Victorian times, and the original horse trough is still in place near the gate. St John's is a Venetian-style church in a rural setting and is dedicated to St John the Baptist. Its sister church is St Luke's, a red brick building in nearby Browning Road. St John's is open between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, excluding school and bank holidays. Reverend Peter Godden has been appointed the new priest in charge of the parish. Anyone wishing to make a donation to the preservation appeal should contact Monica Wood, care of the Vicarage, 92 Browning Road, Enfield. Cheques should be made payable to PCC of St John and St Luke. Gift aid contributions are welcome.
Code in pubs for vulnerable and people on Tinder. A secret code will be used in pubs and clubs to offer protection to vulnerable people. Participating venues will enable customers to signal to staff members that they feel unsafe in another person's company through the Ask for Angela scheme. The code is used to alert staff that another person's words, actions or behaviour leaves the individual feeling at risk. By asking for Angela, the staff can take the person aside or to a safer location, listen to the assistance they need, call a taxi for them, contact friends or family, or request that the individual causing distress leaves the venue. The system has been introduced to reduce sexual violence and vulnerability through the use of a nondescript phrase. The scheme is being rolled out throughout the capital after a pilot scheme in Merton was successfully launched before Christmas. Now, over half of venues in the borough have chosen to participate in the scheme. Bar staff are more aware of the risk to potentially vulnerable customers. Since the launch, security staff at a Wimbledon nightclub witnessed two men providing alcoholic drinks to a lone female while remaining sober, and so they removed them from the venue and called the police and made sure the woman got home safely. Another incident involved a male harassing two women at a Wimbledon bar. The staff intervened after being asked for help, which the man reacted violently to, and he was then removed from the bar and arrested for a fray. Inspector Wayne Matthews from the Central Licensing Team said, "This simple yet effective scheme empowers the public to seek help if they feel vulnerable. It may be that they are in the company of someone who is not what they seemed, and they want to get away safely and with minimum fuss. It will prevent situations from escalating."
Woman raises awareness about crisis in Somalia. Huda feels proud to be a Londoner. A charity advocate who avoided Wednesday's catastrophe by days says she is proud to be a Londoner. Huda Ali had been at a meeting at Parliament Square on Monday and Tuesday this week, attending the Bond conference discussing international development. The master's student said, "It made me feel proud to be a Londoner where people stand together as a community in the face of adversity." The 25-year-old is working for Islamic Relief to raise awareness for the East Africa Crisis Appeal while studying for her Masters in International Politics and Human Rights at City University. Huda was born in Haringey and brought up as a Muslim to Somalian parents, and is inspired by her heritage to raise awareness of the crisis happening in that country. According to Islamic Relief UK, more than 800,000 children under 5 across Somalia, Ethiopia, South Sudan and Kenya are severely acutely malnourished. The student uses social media to raise awareness and organises for the community fundraising events happening in these countries. She said, "Unfortunately, this is not getting the attention it needs or deserves in the mainstream media. This is a humanitarian crisis, and I would urge people to think no differently of the people affected in East Africa than anyone else, because they didn't ask for the situation. There's a lot of focus now on President Trump, but this crisis will kill more people than Trump ever will." Huda hopes to continue her career working in advocacy and hopes one day to work with the United Nations. She has visited her family living in Somalia when she was 11, but has not been able to visit again, although she hopes one day to return to the country. I feel strong emotion at seeing the suffering of my compatriots, which in turn makes me determined to redouble my own individual efforts to assist in any way I can. I hope that the appeal will resonate with British people.
A victory for our community. A legal agreement marks the next step in creating the Trent Park Mansion Museum. Plans for a museum at an historic mansion which served as a World War II secret listening post, obtaining vital information from high-ranking Nazi prisoners, has been bound by legal agreement. After 3 years of negotiation, Trent Park Museum Trust has been given full responsibility to develop the basement and ground floor of the Grade 2 listed building into a museum, outlined in a legal document signed by Berkeley Homes property developers. Chairman of the Trust and Cockfosters Ward Councillor Jason Sharalambu and historian Dr. Helen Fry signed the agreement with representatives from Berkeley Homes very recently. Mr. Sharalambu, who spearheaded the Save Trent Park petition in 2014, described it as a historic milestone which had brought the reality of the museum a step closer. A learning centre and museum will be created at the mansion on the 50-acre site off Cockfosters Road to highlight the significance it had as one of wartime's best-kept secret operations. The public will have the chance to learn how British intelligence officers use covert listening devices to find out crucial information and tactics from prisoners. Visitors will also gain insight into the mansion's early history when it was owned by wealthy socialites, including politician Sir Phillip Sassoon. I am so very pleased we have reached this critical juncture and feel vindicated that the very hard work over the past 2.5 years has been well worth it, said Mr. Sharalambu. While some people may have doubted we would get this far, our dedicated team and councillor supporters made it possible, and I am very grateful to all those who have stood by us up to now. It is a real victory for our community. The mansion was sold by Middlesex University to a Malaysian company in 2013 and was resold to Berkeley Homes 2 years later. Berkeley has plans to redevelop the site into flats, houses and affordable homes, and work is expected to start this summer. Although Trent Park Museum Trust has not specified a date when work on the museum will start, it is hoped to be up and running in the next few years. Mr. Sharalambu said that the next hurdle would be to raise money to fund the work and for the project to be passed by Enfield Council at next month's Planning Committee meeting. We are optimistic that within a few years we will be able to cut the ribbon for a new institution that will propel Trent Park to national recognition, he added.
Cycle campaigners bid to build bridges. A flash mob of cyclists, children, and even a golden Labrador congregated in Winchmore Hill to show their support for businesses. Intent on bridging the gulf between shopkeepers and cyclists, Better Streets for Enfield instigated a shopping spree on Saturday, urging members to spend in the shops, cafes and restaurants in the area. The 20-strong group also handed out cards to shopkeepers that read, "We value our local businesses and want them to succeed." The show of support was prompted following complaints from independent businesses along Green Lanes, at Mason's Corner and the Church Street junction about a drop in income during works to install cycle lanes. Claire Rogers, Better Streets for Enfield spokeswoman, said, "These concerns are totally understandable. Roadworks are always disruptive, but we're optimistic that the High Street will be better for everyone as a result." Evidence from all over the world shows that cycle lanes have never hurt business, even when parking is reduced, and sometimes they have a very positive effect on incomes. But Malcolm McGrath, owner of Keymakers in Green Lanes, remained cynical. He has had the shop for 32 years and said business has been affected, the footfall into the shop has been reduced. It's hard to quantify yet, but this has had a severe effect. It will render green lanes unfit for commerce and drive businesses out. Other businesses the group visited included La Rocca, Atkinson's Pharmacy, Auto Store, Riverside Florists and Lord's, finishing with lunch in coffee break. Several councillors joined in, including Alan Sitkin, Cabinet Member for Business and Regeneration, who said, "Changing consumer behaviour means that the sector is facing very big challenges, requiring very big changes, and we want to support that evolution." The cycle Enfield proposals across the borough will cost about £42 million over 4 years, and Enfield Council says more cycling will cut congestion, improve air quality, and have health benefits by cutting obesity. The Winchmore Hill stretch is due to be finished by April, and it's estimated that the whole of the A105 scheme will be completed by September. An economic assessment by consultants Regeneris predicted a 10 to 15% uplift for local businesses in the medium term due to a more attractive shopping environment.
The wool of the people. Spring has arrived, and so have the newborn lambs at 40 Hall Farm. More than 3,000 visitors snuggled up to the woolly jumpers for the annual lambing weekend on Saturday and Sunday at the farm in 40 Hill, Enfield. A total of 60 lambs have been born on the farm this season, and lucky visitors witnessed the last 2 editions on Sunday. It was a great success, said farm manager Kate McGeever. We can't always guarantee visitors will see them born, so it was an added bonus and they were really pleased. There was also a demonstration of sheep shearing and other rural attractions, including a falconry display, spinning wool, blacksmith demonstration, arts and crafts and pottery making. Food on offer included a selection of cheeses and organic produce. It was lovely to give the visitors the opportunity to see the lambs before they are let out into the fields, added Kate.
Youngsters rewarded for community efforts. Young people from across Enfield were rewarded for contributions to the community at the Jack Petchey Foundation's achievement presentations. Prizes were handed over to 169 winners aged 11 to 25 at Millfield Arts Centre in Edmonton on 2 evenings last week. Each award winner received a framed certificate, a medallion and a cheque for £250. 15 adults were also celebrated with leader awards for their ability to motivate young people. They received a medallion and a framed certificate. Youth organisations and schools in Enfield have received funding of £1,263,200 from the Jack Petchey Foundation since funding started. Jenny Tosh, Enfield Council's Chief Education Officer, said, "The young people and leaders I saw and heard about are an inspiration not only to their community but also to me personally. It has been a wonderful evening for the schools and clubs in Enfield." The foundation was founded in 1999 to recognise the positive contributions young people make to society. Since then, it has provided support to 2,000 initiatives supporting young people across London and Essex and has reached a milestone investing £100 million. Sir Jack Petchey, 91, said, "I'm passionate about our reward scheme, which enables young people to be recognised, valued and rewarded for their achievements and positive contributions to society."
Artist Jane's book draws on the time caring for her mum. An artist has turned her experience of caring for her mother into a book to support other people looking after elderly relatives. Back in 2009, Jane Kerr Wood, who lives in the Ridgeway, Enfield, found herself struggling to cope with the sadness and isolation that can accompany looking after parents with dementia. Luckily, she was able to put her expertise as a professional illustrator to good use and began making notes and drawings as a record of a struggle to handle her changing relationship with her mum. "It wasn't meant to be a book," said Jane. "It was just me trying to get my head round the situation." The book, Dementia Diva, Tales and Tips from a Survivor, takes the form of a series of cartoons and diary entries. Because I'm an artist, I saw things visually, said Jane. Often I was shocked and upset, but then you begin to see the funny aspects. She explained that dementia affects people differently. My mother's sense of humour developed more as the dementia progressed. She didn't have so much of one before. Fortunately, apart from a brief episode of forgetfulness, her mother recognised her daughter until the end. She also knew about the book. She loved it, remembered Jane. She really enjoyed it when I drew her. Jane included a portrait of her mother in a watercolour exhibition, Bodies in Motion, which was staged at 40 Hall in 40 Hill, Enfield, in 2010. Sadly, Jane's mother passed away in 2015, shortly before her 95th birthday. Jane strongly believes that caring support can make a big difference to how dementia is experienced. Sometimes older people have hearing problems that can affect things, she said. Often I don't think they're touched enough or receive hugs. With support, some of her mother's memories were recovered with time, she said, although this might have been because the onset of her illness was late in her life. The book is aimed primarily at other carers and offers sound advice and coping strategies as well as humour. These include the importance of self-care for carers and the need to treat caring as proper work. This can make it both less painful and less stressful, especially as administration and paperwork builds up. My mother was always good at giving advice, including going into schools to talk to children, and I feel that this book is a tribute to her, added Jane. It's such a catharsis. Everyone sees it as negative and depressing, but my mother was such a happy soul. She was such a lovely person. The book costs £7.99 with free postage and is available from Jane's website at https://www.dementiadiva.co.uk/shop/.
And now, some What's On information, then some letters, and after that, some sports news. So first of all, on Tuesday, there's an Enfield for Europe meeting at the Selby Hall in Lancaster Road, Enfield, starting at 7:30 p.m. It's the monthly meeting of the Pro-EU campaign group. Everyone's welcome. The fee is £2 to cover the venue hire, and some light refreshments are provided. And something from the Director of Services and Development at the Nightingale, Joan Kearns, calling all superheroes. The Nightingale Cancer Support Centre were there for me and my family when we needed them most. Now, through this event, it's our way of being there for them. I was first introduced to the Nightingale when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. They helped me to understand my condition and the impact it was having on me and my family. I was able to talk freely about what I was going through without the worry of upsetting or scaring my husband and daughter. They also helped us prioritise the things in our lives that were most important, which greatly helped reduce our stress levels. Today I am well, and my family are readjusting to life after cancer. I realise now what they mean by the words new normal. I hope you can join me on the 12th of May. It really is a truly amazing experience, and the atmosphere is electrifying. Each year I can't wait to get out there and dress up in my gear, put on my head boppers and join the rest of the walkers. The Nightingale is a local charity to Enfield supporting local people. They do so much for the community, so for me to give back one evening is nothing, says Siobhan. On Friday the 12th of May, hundreds of people will pull on their capes, masks and leggings and unleash their inner superhero to walk 15 kilometres around the streets of Enfield to raise money for the Nightingale Cancer Support Centre. Superman and Batman will join forces with Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk for the greater good, to raise thousands of pounds for this great cause. The spirit of the event is to enjoy a fantastically fun evening and take on the walk at your own pace. You can walk, jog, skip or fly your way to the finish line. Confirm your place at www.nightingalesupport.org.uk or call 020 8366 9674.
We're coming up to Easter, so I've got some rather interesting information about Easter eggs and some advice for diabetes chocolate eating. How the egg became a symbol of Easter. Sweet-toothed Brits spend millions of pounds on Easter eggs every year. But how did chocolate come to be associated with the Christian festival celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ? Christian customs connected with Easter eggs are in fact adaptations of ancient pagan practices. The egg is also a symbol of rebirth and fertility for many different religions. In Egyptian mythology, for instance, the phoenix burns its eggs to be reborn later from the eggs that are left, and Hindu scriptures claim that the world developed from an egg. The rise of Christianity in Western Europe saw the egg adopted by the church as a symbol of new life and of the resurrection of Christ. Historians say that originally eating eggs was not allowed by the church during the week leading up to Easter, Holy Week. Any that were laid that week were saved instead, then decorated to make Holy Week eggs that were then given to children as presents. This tradition was adapted by the Victorians, who started to give satin-covered eggs made from cardboard and filled with Easter gifts. The most extravagant early Easter eggs were the creations of Carl Fabergé, who made ornate jewelled eggs for the Russian Tsar and Tsarina in the 19th century. The first chocolate eggs were made in France and Germany in the 19th century. Before the technique of mass-producing hollow eggs was mastered, these were made from solid chocolate and were bitter tasting. J.S. Fry of Bristol was responsible for making the first chocolate egg in the UK in 1873, and Cadbury's launched their first version 2 years later. These early versions would have been relatively unpalatable compared to their modern counterparts, made using dark chocolate with a bitter taste and grainy texture. In 1905, Cadbury's launched the Dairy Milk chocolate bar, and Easter eggs were then made using this new style of milk chocolate. They proved to be hugely popular, aided by further development in mass production techniques. At this point, however, the eggs were still targeted at adult consumers. During the Second World War, chocolate was rationed, so it was not until the late 1950s that Cadbury's introduced its first chocolate Easter eggs for children. Today, around 80 million Easter eggs are sold in the UK every year, making up 10% of the total spent on chocolate overall in the UK annually. And Britain's appetite for chocolate shows no sign of abating, with egg sales in 2016 up 8.6% on the previous year. Let's hope the country can crack a new egg-eating record this year. But if you happen to have diabetes, you might wonder what you can eat at this time of year. Diabetes UK's experts recommend eating small amounts of ordinary chocolate and avoiding diabetic chocolate, which offers no special health benefits. If you want new recipes for healthier meals, snacks and treats, then visit our Enjoy Food recipe finder on our website www.diabetes.org.uk.
Film. Scarlet makes a splash. Ghost in the Shell, which is 107 minutes long. Based on the cult Japanese manga of the same title, Ghost in the Shell is an action-packed futuristic thriller directed by Rupert Sanders, set in a world where an elusive hacker is wreaking havoc by leaping into the minds of unsuspecting strangers. The year is 2029, and cyborg counter-cyber terrorist field commander, the Major, Scarlett Johansson, leads her team, Public Security Section 9, under the aegis of Chief Daisuke Aramaki. Her squadron includes Batu, Pilo Asbek, Toguso Jinhan, and Ishikawa Lazarus Raturi. They are the guardians of a world reliant on the artificial technology produced by Hanka Robotics, and joined the Major in her high-octane battles with cyber-terrorists, including Coots, Michael Pitt, who seeks to exploit loopholes for nefarious gain. A new adversary runs amok, and the Major and her cohorts pool their resources to unmask the shadowy figures behind the conspiracy. Released March 30th.
We now have a review by Anne-Marie Sanderson of the show Blowin in the Wind, which took place at the Chicken Shed on March the 16th. Chicken Shed is renowned for moving and thought-provoking theatre and has surpassed itself with the current production, Anne-Marie says. Inspired by the Bob Dylan song Blowin in the Wind, artistic director Lou Stein wanted to celebrate the song and the man. This song is about every silent protest, every hope for every protest that has been and ever will be, said Stein. He wanted to inspire people and get people thinking about what they are. Whether you should have gone on that protest march that you might have just thought about, and how important it is not to assume that the world will just keep going in the right way. And there is no better inspiration than the character he has placed at the heart of the production, Rosa Parks, played wonderfully by Jojo Morale, the black seamstress who refused to give up her seat to a white man on an Alabama bus in 1955. Her character guides us through history, showing us some of the most heart-wrenching and fantastical scenes of protest down the years. The mothers of the disappeared, the young soldiers, the Berlin Wall, to name a few, all accompanied by haunting images, video clips and a choir singing music which seems to reach into the very soul. What I loved about this production was the clever use of breaking the fourth wall. This is theatre speak for the gap between the audience and the actual players on the stage. Rosa speaks her monologues directly to the audience to draw us in. We are no longer merely watching, we are a part of what is going on. Stein said, Rosa embodies everything that Blowin in the Wind is all about. Strength, and that strength doesn't necessarily have to be loud, dignity, and, most importantly, hope. No matter where we are in the world, like now is not a great time for the world, we will get through it, but we need our voices to be heard. The skillful combination of imagery, words and music makes this a powerful production, and one I sincerely hope Chicken Shed will take out onto the road to reach and inspire as many people as possible.
And now some letters. The first letter this week is from Jean Lambert, Green MEP for London. Skilled EU nationals are a vital part of our workforce. The London Assembly has published a comprehensive report, EU Migration, detailing the risks facing London in terms of a post-Brexit immigration policy. 12% of London's population is from EU countries, compared to 4% in the whole of the UK. About 13% of the 5 million jobs in London, 600,000 jobs, are held by workers born in EU countries, with certain sectors particularly reliant on EU workers. Roughly a third of employees in the accommodation and food services sector, for example, were born in EU countries. Likewise, a third of those working in London's tech sector are EU nationals. About a quarter of workers in the construction centre are EU-born, and 1/10 of NHS workers in London are from other EU countries. Despite the obvious economic imperative of ensuring that EU nationals stay and continue to contribute to the bustling, dynamic city that is London, not to mention the social and cultural benefits, the British government has yet to guarantee that they will be allowed to do so. This is a shameful way to treat people who have moved to our shores in good faith. When we look at the figures, it is furthermore a risky game to play. London needs its EU nationals just as it needs the skills and talents of all its residents, and the government needs to step up and do the right thing for all concerned.
And here's a letter from Jeanette Arnold, a London Assembly member. Sadly, self-employed people aren't off the hook just yet, despite the government reversing their controversial hike in national insurance contributions. Whilst the U-turn is welcome, after all, the government did pledge there would be no change in NICs during this Parliament, it won't help many low-earning self-employed people. Indeed, the government are pressing ahead with plans to force some self-employed workers earning below £5,965 a year to choose between a 400% increase in their NICs or lose out on their state pension. The changes, which will come into force in April 2018, speak volumes about their attitude towards London's small businesses and entrepreneurs. On the one hand, the governments insist that they want Britain to be the place for start-ups, but at the same time they are financially penalising many of the creative people needed to achieve that ambition. The hike in business rates and the refusal to guarantee the rights of EU citizens who already live and work in the capital has left London businessmen and women with enough to worry about. They could do without the government adding to their troubles through ill-thought-out punitive policies. Sadiq Khan has pledged to be the most business-friendly mayor London has ever had. It's about time the government started following his lead.
It's a privilege and an honour. It is with deep regret that, due to family reasons, I will be resigning from my position as a councillor for Enfield Lock on Friday. In the 7 years I have served on the council, I have taken great pride in seeing a Labour administration work tremendously hard for all residents across the borough. I would like to thank council staff and partners for its ongoing efforts to improve Enfield as a whole and deliver services despite the reduced amount of money we receive from central government, a reduction which has unfairly targeted the poor and those in need. I would also like to thank the people of Enfield Lock who put their faith in electing me twice to serve on the council. It's been a privilege and honour to serve you. I wish my successor well and hope that the people of Enfield Lock continue to place their trust in Labour to deliver quality services. The Enfield story is a unique one which speaks to us all, regardless of who we are or where we've come from. Councillor Ozzy Uzo Anya, Enfield Lock Ward.
Now we have a letter from Paul Alford on the subject of multiple jobs for MPs, entitled Osborne's Move. It was announced last week that former Chancellor George Osborne is to become the editor of the London Evening Standard and will work for 4 days a week. He insists that he will remain an MP and serve his constituents. How on earth can this man ever hope to continue as MP and be effective? This is in addition to his role at BlackRock, the world's largest asset management company, where he's an advisor and earns £200,000 a year. So that's 3 jobs in addition to his high-earning speaking engagements. Is the time right to pass a law to stop our MPs from taking a second, third or fourth job? Sorry, I forgot. To pass a law, the MPs have to agree to it, and I don't think they will ever agree to that. There are many MPs who do have a second job or earn money outside of Parliament, speaking engagements, TV appearances, etc., and many who regard their role as MP to be their full-time job. The parliamentary rules do not prohibit MPs from taking jobs outside of Parliament, but with this appointment to the London Evening Standard, public opinion must tip the scales in favour of stopping this practice.
The next letter is from Ian Lebeau of River Avenue, Palmer's Green, and is about young people who are paying the price for the shortcomings of their elders. We currently hear a lot about the trade deal to be negotiated between the government and the EU. However, as a teacher, school governor and parent, I am deeply concerned about another kind of deal, the one young people are being offered in Enfield and across the country. We learn from your front page story in the Advertiser on March the 15th, entitled Heads We Lose, that schools in Enfield are facing serious funding cuts which are set to damage children's education. As for Brexit, it will almost certainly reduce the life chances of our young people compared with the previous generation. Given that they represent the future of this country, shouldn't we be doing everything we can to support youngsters' development? Instead, it seems as if they are being made to pay the price for the shortcomings of their elders. Do we really want to be the nation that failed its youth?
And for a complete change, I'm going to read you a short story. This is by Kelly Pells, who is a published writer from Watford, and she's also the editorial assistant for the Watford Observer. It's called The Note, a short story. Hayley sits at her kitchen table, her trembling hands wrapped around a rapidly cooling mug of tea. She can't bring herself to take a sip. Her stomach feels as though someone has dropped a brick down her throat. The note lies opposite her on the table, just within reach. My dearest Hayley, I'm so sorry to leave you in this way, but I can't stay with you. We were happy once, but if we were to stay together, I think we would eventually drive each other mad. I'm sure this can't seem sudden to you. I will always remember the good times we had. I hope you will too. Martin. Beyond the windows, the sky is bruised purple with the oncoming night. Hayley can hear the two police officers upstairs searching the house for clues as to where Martin might have gone. She knows this isn't really part of their job. They're only trying to help because she cried and pleaded and made a fool of herself. She knows they won't find anything. The officers trudge down the stairs and back into the kitchen. Detective Allen, a young man with black hair and premature lines around his eyes, gives Hayley a sympathetic look. I'm sorry, he says. We didn't find anything to indicate where he might be. Hayley nods slowly. The back of her throat aches and her eyes are red raw from crying. Her lips are cracked and dry, and she can't stop shaking. I should have known something like this was going to happen, she says softly. He was having an affair, though he doesn't mention it in the letter. His secretary. She gives a hard laugh. God, what a cliché. She's a complete lunatic. She phones me every once in a while to tell me she's pregnant and that Martin is going to run away with her. We'll circulate his photo and we'll let you know if we hear anything. Hayley nods. I'm sorry, you must have more important things to do. Thank you for helping me. She shakes the officer's hands and they turn to leave. Just before he walks through the door, Detective Allen glances back and sees Hayley sitting slumped in her chair, her head in her hands. As soon as she hears the door close and the crunch of the police car's tyres on the gravel drive outside, Hayley lifts her head. The despair on her face has gone, the lines of misery erased as swiftly as writing from a whiteboard. She stands up, exhaling slowly, and tosses the dregs of her tea in the sink. She must admit, mentioning the psychotic mistress was a nice touch. She hadn't thought to reference the secretary in the note, but it just came to her on the spur of the moment. Hayley picks up the note. She's always been skilled at mimicry, and her approximation of her husband's handwriting is so good, even his mother would swear it was his. As she looks down at the note, Hayley notices a spot of blood on her blue shirt. It's so small that no one else would have noticed it, and even if they did, it could easily be mistaken for red ink. Quite calm, Hayley unbuttons her shirt and tucks it into the washing machine. She leans against the kitchen counter as the sound of the machine rumbles round the room. A small smile touches her lips.
Peter Cook of Britton Hall Road, Enfield, writes, "What else do bin men do? Can someone explain to me how collecting green bins every other week saves money? What do the bin men do when they're not collecting the bins?"
We have a column from Bill Linton, Enfield Green Party, on the subject of housing. Everyone knows we have a housing crisis in the UK, particularly in London, which has left many, particularly younger people, unable to afford to buy a home in poor quality or overcrowded accommodation and spending a large proportion of their income on private sector rents. Think tank Greenhouse has produced a report with the startling conclusion that simply increasing the rate of building is not the answer. Instead, it advocates measures such as ensuring the existing stock is better used, controlling rents, and increasing the security of the private sector discouraging the purchase of housing primarily as investment, reducing inequality and providing affordable homes. The report argues that house building produces CO2, encourages growth, why that's not desirable is another argument, and that the new homes will be snapped up largely by the rich and buy-to-let landlords rather than by those needing housing. One of the key requirements is a reduction in inequality, leading to a more equitable sharing of the housing stock, strengthening communities and reducing speculation in poverty. Private rents must be controlled with stronger rights for tenants, improved energy efficiency standards and longer, more secure tenancies.
And now for some sport. McCall praises players after Saracens turn on the style. Director of Rugby Mark McCall hailed his Saracens side after they produced a dazzling second-half performance to crush visiting Bath 53-10 in the Aviva Premiership on Sunday. The match was fairly even during the opening 40 minutes, but Sarries still displayed the greater firepower as they outscored their opponents by 3-1 to open up a 17-10 lead. But with a strong wind in their favour, the hosts really cut loose during the second half, running in a further 5 tries on their way to amassing 36 unanswered points as Bath simply capitulated during the closing stages. Chris Ashton led the way by crossing the line twice, while Jamie George, Alex Good, Sean Maitland, Scholt Brits, Brad Barrett and Billy Vunipola also touched down. Owen Farrell completed the rout by converting 5 of the tries and also kicking a penalty. It was a really good performance, McCall said. It was a bit mixed in the first 15 minutes. I thought we started well into a strong wind, and then we made a lot of little errors in the last 20 minutes of the first half, which gave them a bit of a foothold in our 22. We had to defend very well, but the last half an hour was the kind of performance that we're after. The bench came on, and we took our game to a different level. We were good defensively, and what pleased us was how we didn't get sloppy. I think Duncan Taylor's interception that gave Chris his second score demonstrated how alive the players were, and that's us at our best. I know that when we've got a bit of life about us, we're hard to play against. It was great to see Brad get man of the match. Sometimes people don't appreciate what he brings, but he was outstanding. Meanwhile, a record crowd will be in attendance at Allianz Park on Sunday when Saracens host Glasgow in the quarterfinals of the European Champions Cup at 1 p.m, with more than 14,000 tickets having already been sold for the match.
Table tennis club launched. Nightingale Academy is hoping to introduce the sport to new players. An Enfield table tennis club has launched a new community club to run at weekends. Nightingale Academy have introduced the scheme, launching this Saturday at 10 a.m. with the backing of Table Tennis England. The sessions will be led by Simon Huang, who will help attendees improve their skills and to enjoy a new sport. It will run between 9 a.m. and noon on subsequent Saturdays and will cost £1.50 for students and £3 otherwise. 10 tables are available available in the dedicated table tennis hall. For more information, contact Simon_Huang, that's HOANG, at hotmail.com.
Swimmers get 3rd place. Children with autism won bronze and met Olympic athletes at a swimming competition. Students from Specialist Durance School Pitfield Way, which caters for pupils with autism, got a place at the podium at the Panathlon London and Essex swimming finals at the London Aquatic Centre at Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. The Enfield swimmers tied for 3rd place with Stormont House School, Hackney, and pupils from Whitefield School, Walthamstow, were crowned winners on Friday, March the 24th. The contestants got to meet Paralympian and Panathlon ambassador Liz Johnson. In the London 2012 Paralympics, she was chosen to be the Paralympic oath taker and was honoured by laying the final tile of the London Aquatic Centre ahead of its opening. Liz said, "The Panathlon offers a competitive sporting environment for all." The competitors also got to meet diving legend Tom Daly. Head teacher of Upper School, Francis Sutherland, said, "It is an amazing venue to compete in. These pentathlon events are so important, particularly for students with special needs. It gives them an opportunity to compete. We only swim 7 weeks a year, so they have loved it."
Enfield Ignatian's rugby team's disappointing away form continued on Saturday as they lost 33-22 to Tabard in London 2 North West at Cobden Hill. The Blue and Golds have only won once on the road this season, but despite falling behind to a pushover try, they managed to claw their way back when they elected not to kick a close-range penalty. The idea paid off as the hosts went down to 14 men as their prop was sin-binned for coming in at the side. Wes Warren scored Ignatian's first try after Luke Stack was stopped by Tabard's defence. Jake Bates completed the conversion, but a minute later Tabard scored after a missed tackle from their opponents. Ignatians continued to ramp up their efforts, and nearing half-time they'd managed to trim Tabard's lead to 4 points through a Bates penalty. But that was as close as Ignatians got, as they found themselves increasingly pinned in their own half due to Tabard's effective kicking game. With this approach, the hosts managed to add a further 3 tries to wrap up the bonus point. Ignatians scored a second try through Warren, who did well to run in from deep in his own half. However, after that, Tabard stretched their lead, although Enfield did score a third try through Kero Sango in the final minute.
Well, we've reached the end of our programme for this week. Thank you for listening. So, from the team of Ali, Maureen, Peter and Danny, and not forgetting Phillip on the controls, it's goodbye. Please remember to turn over the address label in your postal packet, put the memory stick into the packet and return it to us as soon as possible, in readiness for the next edition. Don't forget, you can call Diane de Jersey regarding any help you may require in connection with Enfield Talking Newspaper on 020 8805 6578. Coming up next, the latest news and information for the Greater London area from InfoSound. The Enfield Talking Newspaper will be with you again in 1 week's time.